Some of the stories making headlines this Tuesday morning, and Zimbabwe's government has authorized the releases of some prisoners to limited overcrowding and prevent the spread of COVID-19. Kuda Kwashe Maoneka, a former prisoner, says we were crowded in the cells despite the COVID scare, and sometimes we were 25 in a single cell. We were aware of the prevention measures, but it was difficult to stay even a meter apart from the next person, and we even slept as a crowd, and I think this is the main reason for the release of some prisoners. A senior assistant commissioner, Alfred Gapare, says the amnesty will go a long way in reducing our prison population, and that obviously means a reduction in the expenditure part of prisons, and also in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is a very, very huge advantage to us. Elsewhere, Cape Verde's Prime Minister declared victory Sunday after results showed his party on course to win legislative elections dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on a tourism-dependent economy. His supporters celebrated his victory in front of the Movement for Democracy's headquarters, with foreign tourism accounting for roughly a quarter of the economy and visitors unable to come because of the global pandemic restrictions. Cape Verde, with a population of 550,000, was plunged into a historic recession in 2020 when output shrunk by 14.8%. Both major parties have pledged measures to provide wide access to COVID-19 vaccinations to diversify the economy. Tucked away by the Ethiopian border, Sudan's Dinde National Park boasts the country's most diverse wildlife, but rangers face a daily battle to protect it as human encroachment mounts. Abubakar Ibrahim, a farmer, says we are from the village of Maikarato and they gave us 5 kilometers for traditional agriculture, but it is too small for us. We need more. Mohammed Ahmed Al-Kanon, the Dinde National Park spokesman, says in the recent period the Dinde Park has been exploited through aggressive cultivation, logging and hunting. These are all threats to the reserve, which is considered the largest reserve in northern Sudan, and has also become the last refuge for wild animals in northern Sudan. Well, to something that gives us an idea of the conversation of the day, in line with our conversation on middleborns, our roving reporter Brian Mushiri spoke to two young Kenyans, Melanie Osuri and Vincent Otieno, on their experience as middleborns in diverse families across the country. This is what they had to say.
My name is Melanie Osuri, and I am the only girl in a family of 3. So that means I have 2 brothers, all right? My elder brother is 8 years older than me. My younger is 4 years older than him. So throughout my life, I can say that the experience has been, there are many times that I have had to step in the shoes of my bigger brother. Being the firstborn, he had to leave the home. He had to travel out and study outside home, and he was not reachable most of the time. So after some time, I had to step in his shoes. I felt like another parent in this way. There's a time that my dad lost his job for over 10 years, and my mom was really struggling. So as the next firstborn, the other firstborn of the other parent, I had to step in their shoes and I'd take care of my little brother throughout high school. There was this actually one time that my parents, they had a little disagreement. So my dad called me to seek my opinion. In fact, I think that was one of the times that I felt included, I felt heard, I felt accepted and acknowledged as a child. And that, if you ask me honestly, came with the responsibility that I had to take. Whenever you take responsibility, people listen to you. Have I felt ignored also? Yes, there are times where I have felt ignored or left out, especially when it comes to very core decisions in the family. Then you are the second born, so the firstborn is heard first before you. But most of the time, I've felt like, yes, I've been included in the family.
My name is Vincent Opande, and in a family of 4, 2 ladies and 2 gentlemen, I'm the third born. And if there's ever been a point where I felt like I'm a parent is in the early age of my life, being brought up with my mother, because my dad had passed some times back. So I felt like I'm the deputy parent. I was like the dad of the home because my other siblings went to live in a nearby town by my other relatives. So I was like the dad living with my mom. It was a tough experience having being brought up by a single mother and without a better income. I personally feel like I'm not forgotten child because we still talk together as a family. We have conversation, though we live in different parts of the country, but we still communicate to one another.
That's this morning's episode on Your Voice. Good morning, I'm Brian Mushiri.
Well, there you have it. A few middle-borns already talking about their experiences, and they've touched on a few that perhaps resonate with the other middle-borns that we're hosting today. But remember, if it resonates with you, if you're a middle-born, talk to us. What is your experience growing up? That hashtag is new normal, and of course, you can reach us using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. And to help us with this conversation, we have Lois, who is a psychologist. She's in studio with us. Then we have the middle-borns joining us virtually. We have Rosaline Mutahi, who is a middle-born, Victor Mwavishi, who is a middle-born, joining us all the way from Malindi, and of course Tina Lenjo joining us from Mombasa County. Thank you all for making time for this conversation. Lois, I think at this point it is important for us to reiterate why it is important to have these conversations about family setups, siblings, and what have you.
I think I want to appreciate Gladys first and foremost, and considering that you held a very, very interesting conversation on firstborns. And the reason that it's important to hold these conversations is so that, parents could be able to just be aware. Being aware, and particularly because, I keep on hearing this because I work a lot with the young people. I keep on hearing, I'm not understood, I felt left out. And then remember, this kind of relationships within the family is what is causing the current misunderstanding with parents, and also sad to say that because of the way a child is treated, either as a firstborn or even as a middleborn or as a lastborn, have been some of the subtle causes of suicide and suicidal tendencies, and even use of drugs and alcohol, because just like what that lady has said, I feel ignored, I feel left out. So it's a very subtle, and sometimes parents don't realize. They don't realize the impact of even the words they say, the roles they give, and even sometimes the way they treat the children depending on their birth order. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the middle-borns and understand their experiences. So let's start off with Rosaline Mutahi. You are a middle-born. How was your experience? I believe you are number 5 in a family of 6, right? Rosaline?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. So what was your experience growing up?
Oh, very interesting. Thank you for having me. I think growing up, the thing that I think defines my experience growing up was the fact that I always felt seen by my family. Very interestingly, there was many of us, so 6 of us. I think my mom had, I like to think of it as spare children, and I always felt seen. In as much as we were many, I feel like my parents were very deliberate about making sure that each one of us was heard. And so they did it in the small things. Every day, whenever we came home from school, my mom was home. If she was not home, she had picked us from school herself. And then on those very rare, interesting occasions, my dad was a government employee. So sometimes it was very exciting to have dad turn up to pick us up from school. So I honestly, when growing up, I honestly felt seen. I honestly felt that despite the fact that I was in a big family, I was not lost in that mix.
Okay, there's something that was brought up by some of the middleborns we just listened to, that at times when the firstborn is taking their role, the lastborn is taking the role, in between there, you're not very sure what you're supposed to be doing. Was that very clear in your family, or you had to figure it out as you grew up?
Okay, so my mom had this duty roster where everybody had a responsibility. So the younger you were, the less responsibility you had. So roles were very clear in terms of what she needed to do. And I think she needed to do that because we were many. That said, I also think that there was less pressure being a younger middleborn. There was less pressure on us because they had much older siblings. So they took on the heat of everything. So if we were in school and we lost things in school like sweaters or mostly sweaters, then they took the hit for that. I always felt sheltered that way. In terms of roles, it was clear in terms of duties at home, what you needed to do at home as a child. But I didn't really feel any pressure growing up, to be honest. If I chose to get lost in that mix, I could have. So there was really no pressure to do anything except be a child, and then of course do your duties of washing the bathroom in the morning, or washing dishes, or clearing up the table. Very simple tasks for a child. Of course, the responsibilities kept growing as we grew older, because then my older siblings went to high school and to boarding school. So, but because they had already mapped out what older life looked like, then you knew as you grew older, you took on more and more responsibility. So honestly, I honestly feel for me it was a breeze. And because I was fifth, like the lady who spoke earlier, I did not have the pressure of having to step into the role of a firstborn. I really just was a child.
All right. Interesting perspective from Rosaline there. And Lois, what I hear is intentionality. Those parents knew they had 6 children, but somehow they made sure that each of them was seen. Talk about that.
Yeah, actually, the dynamics that play on the issue of birth order, firstborn and stuff, the dynamics clearly lies with the parents. And their perception, the way the children came in, you know, and the gender, the culture, their own socialization. You know, I want to declare I'm a perfect middleborn. And some of the things that happened to the middleborn, I'm a 5th in 10, in a family of 10. Now, there is a way in which, like what she's saying, deliberate. Because when a parent is deliberate, they go all those ways of even doing a duty roster. But ideally, if there's not deliberation and there's no strategic way of doing things in such a family, and even for middleborns and stuff like that, then there's chances that that middleborn can easily get lost. Can easily get lost. Or the other dynamic is, if it is after, say, 2 or 3, you see, the middleborns are the ones that are most likely to be bullied. Because remember, I usually call them the second visitor or the third visitor. So depending on you're coming after 2, it's like you're coming in and how you're received in the presence of, we're all already having 4 people who are used in this environment. There's a dad, there's a mom, if that's the ideal, or there's a mom and the other sibling. So if there are two, the more they are ahead of you, the more difficult it might make this child who is coming in as the third, fourth visitor. Now remember, we're also talking about a last born or maybe two other siblings in between. Then it means that the attention can easily be moved away. But then the other dynamics, funnily enough, is that this person, the middle bonds can easily, and it's been alluded to, the middle bond can easily be a forced firstborn. So you become a forced firstborn. So these other guys have done, and the other dynamic is how long are you a middle person? So these people have been here, say, and then you come maybe 5 years later. This person is likely, this child is likely to be bullied. So responsibilities could easily be given and handed over to them, typically. And if my family is listening, they know I'm a forced firstborn. So a lot of responsibilities, and I've met quite a number, that then they are always told, you know, we have been here for long, now take over. So then the person is not given the same guidance, the same training like the first and second born. Then they find themselves overwhelmed. So they can be a little chaotic. They can be a little rebellious. Yeah. They can actually go out of the way and just run away from the entire issue. Yeah.
Interesting perspective. Okay, so let's hear from the gentleman amongst us, Victor Movishi, all the way from Malindi. Are you resonating with what we've touched on so far? What was your experience growing up?
My experience, okay. Well, I'll talk about it from three perspectives. The first perspective is where you end up sometimes being ignored, so to speak. Like, for example, people are in the sitting room, then maybe you sneak out somehow, and when you come back, people are like, "Oh, you had left." So it was like you're kind of invisible. So the second perspective is sometimes people assume they like assumed you don't know how to be responsible of some things you don't know. So it's an assumption that is made on you. You're actually not given a chance to prove that you can actually be responsible. You can actually do this stuff. So in essence, you also become a bit reluctant to develop some leadership earlier. And that perspective maybe is also, I can resonate with my colleague, the lady, don't remember her name. You also feel safe because you're kind of cushioned from some burdens of responsibility. So, yes.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. And you are the third born in a family of 4. So that's why the cushioning from responsibility occurs for you, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Lois, Victor brings in another perspective that you want to step up, you want to prove that you actually are capable, but they won't give you a chance just because you're a middle born. Yeah.
Like now, remember, Victor is a third born. Now, they are already 2. I really liked when we're talking about firstborns, they become the deputy parents.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're the deputy parents, so it's everything perfect, everything trial error is on the firstborn. And depending on their gender, whether they are male, female, now there's so much that is being tried on them to come out with excellence. Now the second born then comes in, and chances are that they are perfecting, or they are now making the firstborn be taking care of the secondborn. Now when a thirdborn comes, now, who is going to deputy or prime minister of this family? Yeah. So you find then the parents are likely to almost now rely on firstborn, secondborn to be able to guide and navigate the thirdborn, because they think they have taught them. So we have a child parenting their brother or their sister. Now, they will not want, remember this other lady said, you know, she was being cushioned because they took the beating for it, or they took the responsibility. So the thirdborn is most likely to be cushioned, and they will feel comfortable in that space, and that is where the losing comes in. Because I'm comfortable, I'm cushioned, here, and then I can actually get away with not being noticed or even certain things that I'm struggling with. So they could end up just being quiet. Because anytime they want to come up and do something, the firstborn is there, deputy president is there, ensuring that you don't do it wrong so that I take the responsibility. Then the prime minister, let me call that, the second-born prime minister is there also just checking if everything is fine, depending on what is the parenting style of the people. I remember some of my siblings took serious beatings on our behalf. And depending on how agile and how intelligent you are, you can actually play your role and just have it nice as a middle-born. But then when the deputy president and prime minister are focused on you, chances are that they are most likely going to be reporting your daily, what you do, the mistakes you made. They are likely to be reporters, and then that focus can easily now be on a middle-born. And then the middle-born then becomes so overwhelmed, or everybody is actually focusing on them.
Okay, and it's interesting that Victor says as much as there could be that kind of focus from the first and the second born, for him, he would sneak out of a room and come back and no one notices he was gone. What is that about? Because,
again, the dynamics of we've already tried with the firstborn. We have sort of perfected with the second-born. Then this third-born has come like a third visitor. We are used to dealing with visitors here. So the routines are set, things are known. So maybe the siblings are now kind of be the ones being given the responsibility for this third-born. And so the parents don't notice, but remember, the first-born and maybe the second-born or whoever is at the top is not a parent. So they are not going to be so attentive. They are also taking care of their own. So you sort yourself out, and we sort each other out. We sort ourselves out in this place. So unless it's a very deliberate effort, and unless the parents are aware, like what we are talking now, then they make certain deliberate efforts to always find out what is it. But the dynamics of culture, the dynamics of gender, the length, the stay before this middle-born came, the circumstances surrounding the coming of the middle-born. I later on learned, when I was now doing the details of my family, that I came immediately after a loss. So I got ignored thoroughly because my mom was still dealing with her loss. And then I came in quickly. And so I was not, she didn't quite welcome. And you see, that can also be. It could be after a long wait. Remember, there are others who are coming after maybe certain losses, miscarriages, certain, situations really determine. Then culture is very interesting, Gladys. Who is the third born? Like in certain cultures when naming is extremely structured. Who is the third born taking the name after? Or who is the second born taking the naming after? Who is the fourth born taking the naming after? If there are 3 girls and there's a 4th boy, the dynamics change completely. Because what is it? How is culture and how are the parents perceiving the arrival of the male child?
Okay, and we'll talk more about that culture aspect in a moment. Let's hear from Tina Lenjo. You are a middle-born, 7 years apart with your first-born brother and 4 years with your last-born sis. Wow, that's quite an interesting dynamic. How was it for you growing up?
We're actually 5. Yes, so I have 2 older siblings and 2 younger siblings. So for us growing up, I can say that my parents were also very, very intentional, and they also really liked helping people. So by the time my brother was being born and my older sister, they found people in the house already. So we grew up with my lovely cousins and my aunties and some of our younger cousins as well. So we really didn't have the issue of the birth order of the firstborn or the secondborn or the thirdborn. We were all equal in front of our parents, and it was such a beautiful childhood. All I can say, maybe later on, when my cousins now were sent off to school, they went to boarding school and to colleges. So when I remained at home now with my younger sister, so that's the time when I took up the firstborn role. So around high school thereabouts, but before then we were all equal, we were all treated the same, and I've never felt neglected. You know, it was really nice.
Okay.
But my cousins had already set the path, say, for my elder sister and for my brother as well.
So you say
Yeah.
when they left, you assumed the firstborn role. Your firstborn is male or female?
Female.
Your firstborn is female?
It's female, and then my brother, then me. I'm literally the middle child.
So why is it that you took up the responsibility? Is it because the two older ones were gone off to school?
Yes, they went off to school. So I had remained at home with my sister, my younger sister.
Oh.
So things like if we are dropped to school, I'd make sure that, you know, I make sure she's in class. So when it's time to go back home, I have to pick her up from class, we go back home together. So I think that's the time when I assumed the firstborn role. But other than that, we were just good.
Okay, so when they were there, you were in the middle, you were cushioned, then off they went and you had to assume this role. Were you ever prepared for it?
Oh. No, and I can't say that I was told to do this. I just found myself there. You know, like mom has gone off to work, or maybe she's working on a Saturday. I have to make sure that my sister, you know, she's fed, she's clean, she's eaten, such things. So it's something that I think it's a role that I built up on myself. It's not something that I was actually told to do. So it's something that I just learned with time.
So when they came back from school or later on in life, did you still carry on with that responsibility, or would you say, now that you're at home, take over?
No, up to now, it's still the same.
Aha, interesting.
Yes, like my brother can come home and I'm there. So what do you want to eat? So what can I serve you? If he leaves his room, you know, like early, I make sure the bed is made. So I just found myself, you know, continuing with the same pattern that I had before, up to now.
Wow. Now, Lois,
Yeah.
I hear the role or the impact of the gender roles, because when the brother would come back from school, he should essentially assume his role in the family, but the third born is actually even serving him food and asking him what he wants. Talk about that, the role of gender.
And, you know, she's brought in this dynamic that I said, depending on the length, you know, how long did this third born come? Now, and then it brings in that aspect over. The firstborn, they're 7 years apart, so it means there's a huge gap between them. Now, then the firstborn is done, the secondborn is following closely. And you remember when I was saying, the parents now imagine that this middleborn should have seen what is being done by the firstborn and secondborn. Learn, look, learn. People have been here before. So learn, and then no one is telling you, because the assumption is you've seen how we have been in this family. So you're coming into the role when they are gone. And then the gender, and it's a dynamic that is extremely interesting. That you find now she takes on more responsibility, particularly of issues at home, planning anything to do with food, taking care of the younger brother. That may not have been so with a male child. They may have done deliberate efforts to be able to cushion this male child, most likely. But now she's taking on the role and actually even taking care of the brother when he comes home. And it's a 7-year gap. It should have been the one telling the younger sister, I'm taking charge. But here comes dynamics of culture and dynamics of families and their perception on children and their gender roles.
Okay. Now, a lot of perspectives being put on the table, even as we talk about middleborns this morning. Remember, our question of the day to you is, are you a middleborn? What was or is your experience growing up as one? That hashtag is a new normal. Again, are you a middleborn? How was it growing up? Talk to us. That hashtag is new normal. If you can actually have some of that feedback coming from you, we have some. Okay, let's get ourselves in order first before we serve that up to you. Now, let's talk to Rosaline. You said a family of five, a family of six, you are the fifth, and you felt sin. Are you a parent to yourself today?
Actually, I have a 2.5-year-old that keeps me on my toes.
Okay. Now, when you think about how you grew up and, of course, the intentionality you talked about, are you consciously doing the same with your baby?
Okay, yes. I'll just say a few of the things that we did. So I used to, after I became a mom, I wondered how my mom had 6 children and survived, because it is hard work. That said, the first thing I did, and it wasn't very deliberate, I didn't think about it consciously at the time, but now that I think about it, it was very deliberate. I took time off from work to actually take care of my child. For the first 6 months of his life, I think I'm the only person who was with him. I mean, maybe that's natural because he was a baby, but it extended a little to more than that. And so maybe for the first 1.5 years of his life, I was at home practically every day with him. And some of the things that we did were, we kind of avoid gadgets. So we avoid gadgets a lot. So we very deliberately made sure that we read to him, that we took him out to walk, that he had a word of the day from the day he was 0 days old, from 1 day old. So we've deliberately made sure that he's learning, so we are teaching him ourselves, which is really helpful in this time when schools are closed and there are decisions around whether or not to take your kids. I mean, I know kids are going back to school, but I mean, of course, I sit and think, would I take my child to school right now? Not sure. So we've taken on the responsibility of teaching him early. And then some of the things we do now that he's older and I have actually gone back to work is I make sure that I'm home every night before he goes to bed. I may not catch him at meal times because that disrupts his schedule, but I make sure that as much as possible, I tuck him into bed so that he knows that he's taken care of, he's loved. In fact, often he tells the nanny that I want mommy to come and check on me. So it's just knowing that those things are important. They're important for him because he talks about them. So in the same way that I think my parents saw me, despite the fact that he's just one child, I try as much as possible to make sure that I can see him and I'm conscious about the things that are going on in his life, just even if I am not there with him the whole day anymore as I was in the beginning.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And Rosaline, let me ask, you said you always wondered how your mom hacked it with 6 children.
Yeah.
Do you think you will go down that road, have 6 or even more?
No. I don't think so.
Why?
I think, no, I don't. I think I have the capacity for it, certainly, in terms of I've built the mind for it. But I also think that there were different support systems then. Because my mom always, when we were growing up, my mom always had 2 nannies. They were often relatives from shags up country. And then there was her sisters. And don't get me wrong, my sisters are here and available, but they also have their own families and they work jobs as well. So there's a lot of things that are going on there. I know that a few years ago, before I got married, I wanted many children. I actually wanted 9. I wonder now what I was thinking. But the truth of the matter is, no, I totally love large families. I just don't think that it's for me. My husband and I have discussed adopting children, but that discussion is on the table. So, but I don't think that we will get to 6 children. No, maybe 3.
Okay. Now, Lois, Rosalind talks about not wanting to have many children, like the setup she grew up in. But apart from the economics of it, there are some middleborns who have actually said, I saw it happening in their house. I don't think I want to have the kind of setup in my own home.
Yeah.
What would inform that?
Experience. And you know, the challenge we have now with experience, how somebody was parented. Because Rosalind presents an excellent kind of ideal situation, even for her and the current, that she's able to get time off work. It's a beautiful thing. Now, it brings in the whole concept of attachment, that she's quite attached to this child, that it may be a little different if there were now many. You know, there's the mind fatigue. And I hear my own children saying, things have changed. Things are different on the ground these days. Because the way I dealt with the first 3 is not the way I dealt with the last one. Because you get exhausted. And then situations might not be as ideal. And for many parents, it's not as ideal. So when they go through with the first one, and the other thing that is quite, she mentioned it, the support system. You know, right now, the things that are happening within the people that are helping us bring children up, you see them, you sometimes let us know, create awareness for people on media. People are really struggling. Do I stop working? How can I? And the workplaces are not as flexible as that. And quite a number of people cannot take off time from work. And then you get a nanny or someone who is supporting, and they mistreat the child. Now, people are not able now to deal with that kind of. And the support is also not as strong as what it was. I had one, some people have like for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. A nanny who stays with the children. That's not very practical at this point in time. So it's not very easy to talk about several children, even if you had all the money. But how to bring them up is a really, really tough, especially for any parent who wants to be deliberate. Then remember, some are actually undoing what was done for them. So they keep on undoing what was done for them. And some of them are coping, seriously needing to cope what was done for them, but the system now is completely different. I hear Rosalind talking about gadgets. Parents have struggled to keep gadgets off, and it is not a possible thing at the moment. So instead of a lot of parents struggling with the gadgets off, it's maybe instilling values in this child so that they control, and they control themselves on the gadgets. Because there are controls for these gadgets. You tap where you want to tap. And even if you tap and the child sees, they can easily evaluate that, is this good for me? So instilling that value really takes stuff like what Rosalind, it takes being present there. And it takes also deliberately checking on the other support system. Who are these people? Kawaida, we usually pick, you know, people who might have gone through some struggle, they have not succeeded in life, then they are the ones who come in to help us bring up the children. And then we do not look at them with the value that we know their life can actually be implanted on the life of my child. Their values on my child. Their perception and attitudes are actually rubbing on that child and children for that matter. So it's very critical that the support systems are really, you know, deliberately chosen and structured and also mentored.
Okay, now remember that hashtag is new normal, even as we hear from you in as far as your experiences growing up as a middleborn. Again, that hashtag is new normal, and those numbers at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to call us up. And we have a couple of you talking to us. We have Jude who says double attacks. Ukiulizwa mbona usikue like the firstborn na bado you're being told to be a role model to the lastborn. Oh yeah, I hear a lot of identity crisis in between there. Nyagaiti Bonereri says it's tough because I'm lost in both being an older and a younger sibling, which ends up blocking out my exact roles in the family. Another one here talking about being caught in between. Luambo Luanzo says, I never got to wear new clothes. I just inherited from the big brothers. Big brothers too doubled up as managers as well as discipline masters. It was basically like an approved school. Anyway, it's shaped by character. Luambo, we hear you. Thank you for sharing. Samuel says, karibu kila mtu kwa familia anakutegemea. Aji sasa, ebu talk to us, Samuel, and tell us more about your experience. And Calvin here says, as a middleborn, you have to innovate your way in self-sponsorship. Nobody remembers you. And it's interesting that, Calvin, what you say resonates a lot with what Victor was saying. Victor, you said you would sleep out of a room, come back, people would never know you were gone. But you also said you kind of felt like you brought yourself up. So how did you morph into doing that?
Well, the firstborn has a lot of, as much as they have a burden of responsibility, most people who interact with the firstborn give them the skills of getting along with the role. Maybe you go to get-togethers and all the uncles and aunties are telling your firstborn how to be an example to you, the rest of you. But you, katikati, nobody cares about you. They look at you like, you're just a kid, you don't know anything. So not many people give you skills on how to be responsible, to take leadership of your life and all that. So you have to either learn from what you see with your firstborn, and some areas you have to just figure out on your own through maybe other sources.
And somebody mentioned that they felt caught between. Did you ever feel that way, especially with your lastborn?
Yeah, because sometimes I'm left alone with her and I'm told, now you're the big person, you need to take care of your little sister. And so I'm wondering, okay, I'm trying to do that. Then my older sister is also there trying to discipline me. So I'm wondering, okay, exactly who is in control here? What are we doing? Confusion.
Okay, I hear you. Let me hear from Tina. Tina, somebody mentioned that they rarely got new clothes. They always inherited clothes from their older siblings. Now, you have a unique situation. Your sister was way older. Were those clothes kept for you to inherit, or did you get lucky seeing that you were after a boy?
I got very lucky. So I was always having new clothes.
You are lucky. I guess the gap helped you a lot.
But my sister now inherited from me.
All right.
My younger sister, yes.
Talk more about feeling caught in between. Again, there's a firstborn, secondborn. They have set out, the leadership skills. You've inherited them. But then again, there's a lastborn also who you have to bring up. Did you feel a bit lost in between there?
A bit. I can't really say like 100%, but maybe 50, 60 thereabouts. Especially in things like, let's say my mom could call me from work. She's like, I'll be home at 6 o'clock. So make sure we nyama kwa fridge. We cook. So 6 o'clock comes, she gets in the house. She's like, what happened nyama? Why are we not eating? Why are we not, kujabandika nyama nini? So I'm like, oops, I forgot. So such things, she can't go ahead and start talking to my younger sister, like, why did you do that? Why didn't you remind your sister to do that? Okay? Or things like maybe she's hung clothes outside, then it starts raining automatically. My sister will not be the one to go out and get them. I just have to run and get them in the house. So these are things that I think automatically I just found myself doing without really being told.
And when they say that at times when you're caught in between and you're trying to figure out who you are, fine. For you, it gave you independence, responsibility, right? But did you feel if given a chance, you would have wanted to perhaps play a different role?
I don't know. Maybe.
Or you've
Maybe.
never even
Just
thought
maybe.
of it?
I've just about it. But I'm really trying to, I have a 4.5-year-old daughter.
Yes.
So I'm really trying to instill the best of values that I can. So I'm really raising her to be very independent, and she's very, very confident. When she talks to you, you won't even imagine she's a 4.5-year-old. She's very conversant, she's very sharp, and I think by the time, she's going to in class 1 or class 2, she'll be good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And for Liz, she carried over the independence card, the versatility. She can adapt to any situation, which is a plus, yeah? But then again, you listen to Victor and he's like, half the time I didn't know who I was. This one is pulling my ears. This one is expecting to take care of who am I in between. Talk about the risk of dealing with identity crisis for the middleborns.
Yeah, when they speak like that, it reminds me of when we were being taught how to cross the road. Look left, look right, look left again. So, your left could be that you're now a firstborn because you have a younger sibling. Then remember, no family is excellent. The firstborns could not be, or maybe the secondborns could not be excellent. And so, the parents could be looking at whatever is not right with the firstborn and the secondborn. We try to make sure we get it right in the middleborn. And this middleborn can easily get into a crisis because the roles that they are supposed to model, firstborn, secondborn, is modeling, but they are not quite there. Now, they become like a preventive measure for the lastborn or the lastborns. We are either trying a do or die so that the lastborns would get a perfect image of the children we are supposed to have. And that can be crazy. And that's where you now find the middleborn gets, who am I supposed to emulate? Or am I supposed to set my own agenda of the perfection? But then who is there to direct me like there was with the firstborn and maybe the secondborn? So that is what gets us to the identity crisis. So am I a role model to my younger siblings, or am I picking the character of the older siblings? And then the most challenging, and sometimes it saddens me, is should there be a complete failure with the firstborn, the secondborn, the middleborn becomes almost like now the senior parent. So you fill in for the firstborn, and I've seen this happening especially for the firstborn, the older siblings who could be abusing drugs or substances. They want to cushion, but they also want to talk to them. But remember, they are younger. But then they are also looking at their younger siblings, and if they are sober enough, they don't want them to catch, the habit of this. And then they are also the middlemen between them and their parents. So they are here trying to protect this, hide this, so that they see how they can be helped. Then they are cushioning their younger, and they are also, trying to protect their own parents from knowing that something is not okay. Oh. So they are most likely to be in serious identity crisis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Middleborns is our conversation today. The role they play. Talk to us again. That hashtag is new normal, and you can also call in using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. We quickly take a short break. When we come back, we'll hear from the middleborns. How is life as an adult now that you had all these experiences growing up? We'll be right back.
Sisi kama Kogalo team, saa hii game yetu imeenda class. Tunataka players wetu wapewe koti, ama namna gani? Suit. Wapewe suti, tuxedo. Ivo. Goalkeeper kwanza tunataka friji wekewe pale kando. Double door. Tunataka kishika ball anaenda kwa fridge anachukua. Ball gani hawakujangi kufunga wanakuwa wamesinda huko goalkeeper.
To get Kogalo, dial *811*850#. Skiza na Nation.
Where else can a sun rise and buckets fall? Where else can one big man carry a whole city's dream?
Philly's finest.
Where else can one team represent BK to the fullest?
Brooklyn in the house.
And where else can a whole league look to take the throne?
Did You Know segment brought to you by EACC in partnership with the International Development Law Organization IDLO. Leading to the elections, you the voter have all the time to look out for leaders on the basis of competence, suitability, personal integrity. Good leadership equals prosperity of our nation. Tuangamize ufisadi, tuijenge Kenya.
If there's one thing that all soaps do, it's wash. From buckets to basins, bathrooms to streams, and everything in between.
All soaps wash.
Yes, but Protex is different. Its reinvented formula with flaxseed oil boosts your skin's natural anti-germ defenses by 10 times more, protecting you against 99.9% of germs. So what keeps us healthy?
Protex.
Protex. Good health starts here.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Today having a very interesting conversation on middleborn. Still helping us along with this conversation, Lois No, who is a psychologist, Rosaline Mutahi, Victor Movishi, and Tina Lenjo, who are all middleborns. And it's interesting that there are some similarities and also there are some differences in how they all grew up as thirdborns. But then again, I mean, as middleborns, but remember, it all depends, as Lois is saying, on the family setup, culture, gender roles, among other things. And speaking of which, we have asked you to talk to us. If you are a middleborn and you'd like to share your experience, that number at the bottom of your screen is how you can reach us. And also you can talk to us on social media on that hashtag New Normal. We have Mohammed from Isiolo on the line. Mohammed, habari yako? I see. We seem to have lost Mohammed, but we'll try and get him again. But that feedback's still coming in. I have one here from Marvin who says, as a second born, when my big sister went to boarding school, I had to learn how to cook and clean and also take care of my younger siblings whenever my mom wasn't at home. Lois, this one brings a different perspective because the assumption is that the girls are the ones who will take over, you know, taking care of the siblings. But this is a guy. He had to take over from where the sister left off.
Yeah, that must be a typical family, like the one I grew up in, where your role is maybe age appropriate and position appropriate. So even if you're the boy and work has to be done, and the age appropriate work is that you're supposed to cook for them because they are younger, then that is done. And I really, when I look at it, in fact, thinking of it critically, my mom being a teacher, I think she must have thought about class 1 role, class 2 roles, because we used to do the roles according to your age. So there are certain things you do when you are at a certain age, and then you graduate to the next. And like I said before, by the time you made for Teacher Margaret ugali for her to put in her mouth, you had been taken through all the processes, because that was the highest achievement. And you know, you feel so nice, you feel so good that you have achieved. And the whole family knows that you are now at a place where you are responsible, you can be trusted, and you can begin now to partner with them, you know, in their older roles. So the age-appropriate roles, and again, it comes now with what is happening here. Now, how is that child looking at their new role when the person who is doing this is gone? Whether it's a male or female, how have they been introduced into this role? Or, like we're saying, you know, jipange. Because you know, you should see, it's not like you'll be told. Your older sister has gone to school, so there's no one here to lecture you. You must have been seeing what they were doing, so do it. So that's where the challenge comes in, and then you realize the middleborn feels like they have been pushed into a role that they were not prepared for. And then some of them actually come up and they actually now show. You remember someone was saying, this is now my time to show you guys how I am now capable. And some of them come out so independent until they overtake even the firstborn, because they saw all the things that they were not doing very well, and they have taken the opportunity to perfect, and then they now become firstborns. And then somehow you realize then the firstborn comes back and it's like, oh, okay, my position. I'm coming back to my position, but the parents, the senior parents are already so satisfied with what this other person has been doing. And so there becomes a bit of a tussle there, and you can find some dynamics, very interesting dynamics happening in the home at that particular time.
So at that point, what should parents be conscious of?
The parents need to basically take care of the different roles that are played and how to exit. You know, how to exit and then give higher roles. Because you see, the moment, like for me, for sure, my older siblings then went and they were living away with a relative. Then I took over. So I became almost like the firstborn. So when they come back, it's like we agree, because there are other superior roles. Remember, our roles were kind of on a strata. So there are other superior roles that they now play, and I remain with this current role until I'm able now to take over. So it means then parents need to be very conscious about what has happened. What has the dynamics? Has one of them gone to boarding school and left this other one here? Has one now is working and the other one is still quite well back in school? So there's need to be very deliberate and very conscious efforts. And this calls, Gladys, for a lot of family conferences, let me call them, and symposiums and workshops, where people occasionally get to just hear, what is it that is going on? Now, okay, we are back. No, even if the person has gone off, I've been in a situation where they went abroad. This other child does not even know when they are coming back because you're too young to even know. Then suddenly, your elder sister who left 2 years ago is back. you're not aware that they have come back and stuff like that. So how are you sitting? So this middle-born child, or whoever is left now to be the firstborn, firstborn, begins to start wondering, okay, do I leave you to come in and you start working the way I was working, or what happens? So it becomes a very interesting dynamics. Yeah, and remember they were saying they can easily be ignored. So your older sister has come, your older brother has come. So you are either stepping, or people just assume that now you must step back, or you can easily be bullied by the firstborn. Continue doing what you're doing so that I can sit and maybe supervise you.
Yeah. All right, I understand we have Mohammed back on the line from Isiolo. Mohammed, habari ya leo?
Nzuri sana.
Ungetaka kuchangia vipi?
Nilikuwa nataka ni swali yangu. Nasema hivi.
Okay, tafadhali punguza sauti ya TV yako.
Hello? I'm asking why the middle child is the best among the family?
Do what amongst the family?
Yeah, I'm the fourth born. But the family paid a lot of attention to that born.
Okay.
So I shall be so much grateful if I know why the middle child is best.
Is best?
Why the middle child is the best.
Interesting perspective.
Because these people are discriminating us.
You feel discriminated.
They always say the middle child is the best.
Okay.
So I want to know today.
Okay, Mohammed.
Recognize it.
All right. Thank you so much for calling in. And it's interesting that in his setup, the middle-born seems to be the best child in the family, but perhaps it could be the dynamics you were talking about.
Yeah, the dynamics I was talking about, because whatever has not worked with the older siblings is almost perfected. And chances are that they are likely to come out well, perfect. Because the parents are now aware, they are more deliberate, they may have realized what they did not do right, or what they may have need to do differently with this middle child. And I'm a perfect example of that kind of scenario. You know, even the choice of schools, you know, the choice of even value. They could even have now known the kind of support system they need for their own family dynamics. If you find then maybe they assumed even the spirituality of their nanny. And now with this third born coming, they realize, oh, now we need to be deliberate about the spirituality. We need to be deliberate about the level of knowledge. And their chances are that they can come out much better than the rest of the family, because they're also looking for, now we know, so we are taking care of the younger one. So this younger one now can pick a great example. Now, that child could easily gain more training and more excellent way, in quotes, of upbringing. And they could also be put into very deliberate spaces for them to have values. They could even be, you know, put with deliberate people, cousins coming in to set an example for them. So they could easily be the best child. Yeah.
Okay, Mohammed, there you go. And it's not about discrimination. He says that they seem to have gotten it right with their third boy. Okay, let me hear from Rosaline. You said you were seen, you were heard. Who are you as an adult? Has this influenced who you are socially, amongst friends, in your marriage?
So I want to say this. I want to say what I'm going to say about myself in the context of my sister, who's really bang in the middle of our family. I think that we're talking to her and seeing a lot of my friends who are middle born, like right in the middle of their families. The role that they have taken in the family is a mediatory kind of role, where they kind of get along with everyone who's older, and then they get along with everyone who's younger. They are the Kofi Annans in the family.
Yeah.
And they also take a lot of responsibility. I think it's something that Lois has pointed to about Older siblings leave home, and then they are now they come into roles as, in a sense, the firstborns. So a lot of how my life is defined now is shaped a lot by how my life looks right now is shaped a lot by not just my parents, but also my siblings, my older siblings. So one of my older sisters made sure that I finished university, that I studied and finished. So she paid for my education, which was, I don't think she was asked to do that, but she did, right? So I got a lot of the opportunities that I did, first off because of my parents and just the fact that they gave us confidence, and they gave me confidence to know that I am seen. But then my sister also facilitated a lot of the things that I did. So I went into university, I finished my CPAs and was able to get a fairly good job, actually a very good job. And that job also opened a lot of opportunities for me to do what I do now. So right now I run my own business. I'm a consultant. I sit at what's called Sandbox, and Sandbox is the home of 25 disciplines, different disciplines of businesses, different professionals working with businesses, working with SMEs. So we have marketers, we have HR consultants, and different people. But I honestly feel that where I am sitting now, running my own business, doing the things that I did with my life was facilitated largely by my middle-born siblings, because they gave us opportunity. They gave me, they opened the way for us. So they facilitated many things. They mediate in our family. They make, in a sense, they keep the dynamics running. I don't know how else to say it. So I feel like who I am today is because I'm a further down the line middle-born. The middle-borns in my family have shaped a lot of things that happen within our family.
Okay,
So
and
very interesting.
It's an interesting dynamic, and I think this is
because if the firstborn got it right, the deputy parent got it right, then all the cabinet secretaries are doing it right.
Yes.
Then these undersecretaries that come a little later, they find a perfect system, and they are likely to turn out quite well.
Interesting.
But especially if they don't get overwhelmed. I was myself overwhelmed because, again, the dynamics that come in is you have been left as the firstborn, the first, I call it firstborn at that point in time, because maybe certain dynamics have occurred. Maybe even death has come in of a parent. And then you are now coming and you're basically playing the double roles. And so those dynamics come in is how well prepared are you? That most likely the sister did not just start paying school fees. He must have consulted with the parents. Okay, let me take over the paying up of the school fees and see this child up to the end of it. Now, that kind of a role when an older sibling takes it, you see the other siblings in between, if a firstborn, they also now want to make sure that you're not taking the resources, their resources, just like that. So they will make sure that you measure up to their sibling resources, because you are taken care of, you supervised well, you're supported well, and chances are that what Roslyn is saying is as a result of that dynamic, of where we feel we can now take over because we have been well instructed, then the structures have been laid well out.
That hashtag new normal. What is your experience growing up as a middle-born? I see you talking to us, and we also are encouraging you to call in, just like Mohammed from Isiolo did. Ruth Chumba says, as a middle child and only girl, I enjoyed. I got attention from all sides. I took my brother's clothes and no one questioned me. I brought strange stuff home and no one asked. Interesting. They're there, but you can't see them, which they take advantage of. King Padizi says, it's a damn stressful life. Imagine firstborn is a girl and lastborn is a boy. And you are three of you. Daddy's girl and mommy's boy. You just stay in between there like you came from Neptune. I even hate it up to date. Why are in the middle.
Yeah.
Wow, we hear you.
Yeah.
Nkame says we managed to grow independent faster. Interesting perspective, and I think this was alluded to by Tina. Would you say that one of the biggest pluses you got from this role is independence?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And is it coming from the fact that you had to take the roles, but also is this something that you harnessed as you went along? And who are you today as an adult?
I think the fact that I became responsible at a very, very young age is not something that I can leave behind. I think this is just something that it's just me, you know. So all I can say is the family itself, I think it's the first institution that we interact with. Yeah. And for us to have, you know, a functional society, I think the family needs to be functional first. So for us to be able, you know, to interact with other people outside, for me to be able to, you know, like be able to host or to even stay with a relative, it's actually because of what I saw my parents doing. So it's something that has really, like, for me, hosting is not really a big of a deal because it's something that I have seen. Or if someone is in problem, you know, it's something that I'm always ready to help them because this is something that I have grown up knowing, grown up seeing from my own parents. And I think Dad and Mom, you did good.
Okay. And when you think about who you are today, describe yourself in a relationship, whether as a friend or as a, you know, intimate partner. What personality do you bring in?
I think this is where the middle child personality comes in. Yeah? I think I'm very reserved. You know, it's not like I talk too much or, you know, like I go out there shouting, but I think I'm a bit reserved. And also, I love peace. I love making peace. So whenever I find, you know, there's, you know, something is controversial, I'm always there. You know what, you guys, let's sit down. Let's make it up, you know. And something else is that I adapt very, very fast. You know, I'm sure my siblings are listening now. Things like I have, you know, older cousins my mom's age. But believe me or not, you know, we talk and we share ideas. And, you know, we have like a 14, 15-year gap, yeah? But we are able to talk and, you know, I'm able to talk to them as grown-ups. I respect them. So these are values that were instilled when I was very, very young. And if it weren't for my mom and dad then, it would be very hard for me to, you know, to learn these social skills.
Nice. I hear you agreeing.
You know, Gladys, it's the look left, look right.
Yeah.
Because they have older siblings they were looking up to, they have younger ones, so the flexibility. The ability to be able to be in the middle and flex. That brings the flexibility. And so they are also, remember we said they can come out much better. And I think, who was it said, you know, the mediator.
Yes.
They become the mediator. And you know the mediator, remember when I was saying they want to protect the bad manners on the older ones because they know they have been there before and he came after them. Then they also want to protect these younger ones if they are sober enough. So chances are that they would be the ones being spoken to whenever the family needs a mediator, even with the aunties, like what Tina is saying. Yeah, they would reach out to this child who has almost come out well and they are the ones to be talked to. Ebu, talk to your mom. Talk to dad. So chances are that there can be a lot of dynamics with a middle-born child. Yeah, and they take roles, you know, just dynamic roles any other time because anything can happen. You know, an elder child, like what was being said, can quickly get an opportunity, and in 1 week they are gone. Then suddenly you are at the head of the home. So a lot of things happen with this middle child, and they can be very flexible. Then they are the look left, look right. So when Tina is saying that they are reserved, they usually there's a tendency to always wait and see Is it going to be given to the younger person, or is the older person going to come up? I find that dynamic a lot in my family. So my elder sister then quickly asks, what do you think? Or you are better placed. And then I quickly take up the role.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. There's something that Tina mentioned, that she's very reserved and she feels that's where the third born in her, or rather middle born in her, checks in. And I think this resonates also with Victor, because you said you're very reserved, have led a very secluded life, you enjoy your own company. Tell us more.
Because of being, mostly in my own space, generally in the family, most of them, they know me for being quiet and reserved and conserved. But I've also learned other ways of existing. Like I can also be very social and noisy and playful, but it depends with the energy that I come across. The being invisible in the family taught me how to enjoy my own space. So sometimes people may mistake me for an introvert, but I think I'm more of an ambivert. I have both extremes. I can be very out there, and so it depends with who I am with and maybe how long we have been together. Yeah, but I'm usually slower to come out because probably that dynamic in the family cultured me in that way. So I'm slower to come out to show myself. But sometimes, again, you meet some people who know how to very quickly get under your skin. So you find yourself getting out faster with them. But generally, I've learned to be more sociable, more interactive. Yes.
Okay, but it sounds like it's something that you're very intentional. You know what's your default, but you're really trying to find ways to exist and get out of this shell.
I'm actually hearing him.
Yes.
He's learned to manipulate his space so that when he wants to hide, he knows he can hide and not be seen. Then he enjoys that space. Then when he knows he can be left out, he becomes louder, and then he is noticed because you're actually shouting from that corner, and people have to notice you. So he's learned to play his roles very well. If I ever told anybody that there are spaces I go to and I sit and I am not noticed, they will tell me, nah, no, you can't. No, you can't. But there's that flexibility where, because of this concept of you were looking left, looking right. But then the other thing that Victor's reminded me of is there's a lot of why and hesitation with the middle bonds. Because it's like, why am I the one being hard on, and yet maybe the older one perhaps did not do as well? Then why am I being made the senior of all these others, and yet they are older people ahead of me? So the fact that they cannot be bypassed, they ask a lot of why questions. And the why questions then make them sometimes want to watch this space. So that when they come in, it's like, I must identify myself. The independence that Tina is talking about. I want to do these things differently. And maybe you've given me, I sometimes like research, is the middle born likely to take on the family career? So you find the chances the middle born is the one who is most likely to get off with their independent career. And they do things differently.
Yeah, they're the child. Yeah.
They're the artist. They might be the singer. They might be the person that, when the family was first, second, was in this line. they might be the different one, or they might be the one who now takes on the family mantle, and then they actually extend the family staff. Yeah.
Okay, interesting dynamics with the middle born, and clearly depending on the circumstances you grew up, that pendulum could swing whichever way. Whichever way. Well, we take a quick break right here on Your World. We'll be right back even as we understand a little bit more of the dynamics of middle borns. We'll be right back.
Now, as we enter another chapter of the COVID-19 pandemic, rest assured that we aim to deliver the same level of professionalism, excellence, and integrity you have come to expect from us. We did it once before, and now we are better prepared and equipped to ensure that our future leaders get what they truly deserve: the best education. Applications can be done online via ztech.ac.ke.
We are Nation, Africa's independent media brand. We are committed to empowering all Africans, from the young to the old, from the curious to the educated, and from the heart of the cities to the rural areas. We are Nation. Join us, because if you want to get far, you do it together. Nation. Empower Africa.
It's one platform where everybody has a voice.
If we don't have jobs, if we don't have money, if our business...
Hosted by the King of Wit.
Do you know the Bible to that much detail? Ama hizi ni zile tu zinaendanishana na dhambi zenye unajua.
It's basically everybody's show.
Vitamin C ni cassava, shauri ya nguvu. Vitamin D ni dania.
Ana chakula, anaimba. I have decided.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. King Ori and the Guesswork CEO, Kenya Jui.
The Kisumu County Assembly specializes in stimulants, to be specific, concentrated coffee.
Where humor meets sense.
Moses Kuri alinitwanga hapa serious.
Soldiers wanakuanga wameka polisi hivi. Mbona nyinyi mkimbiangi mkituona?
The Wicked Edition. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. only on NTV.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
Thank you for staying with Your World. Let's take a look at the other world. Now, fans arrive at London's Wembley Stadium for the FA Cup semi-final between Leicester City and Southampton on Sunday, as eased coronavirus lockdown restrictions in England allow spectators to return. One fan says he is happy to be back and thinks it was the right decision to not have the public in the stadiums, and the match will served as a test event with 4,000 local residents and essential workers in the crowd.
It's obviously not going to be the same as having a full stadium, but it's still going to be some atmosphere. Yeah, it's good to have fans back. We can't, beggars can't be choosers, you know. We take what we can, and yeah, we enjoy the game. Definitely the right decision. Obviously, COVID, you know, is something we can't control. So yeah, I'm just happy to be back in the stadiums, to be honest. That's all that matters, and looking forward to the game.
Images of a mine next to Coaca River in northeastern Colombia after rescue teams following 22 days of search efforts found the bodies of 2 out of 11 miners who were trapped by flooding in late March, according to authorities. Luis Correa, the mayor, says, well, we have been working in coordination for 22 days now. Thanks to this coordination with the different national, departmental and municipal entities, the support of the relief agencies and the miners, this coordinated work has already yielded results. Elsewhere, Thailand is setting up 25,000 beds in field hospitals across the kingdom as it battles a new wave of COVID-19 after the discovery of the UK variant. In Bangkok Arena, 350 beds made of cardboard are lined up for asymptomatic patients and those suffering mild symptoms, as home quarantine is not allowed in the country. Hundreds waited in grim silence at a Bangkok stadium to get free COVID-19 tests as a spiraling infection rate crippled Thailand on a fourth consecutive day of more than 1,000 new cases. The capital appears to be the epicenter of the kingdom's third wave after infections were traced back to a nightlife district earlier this month. Now, Space Center Houston says it was very exciting to host French astronaut Thomas Pesquet of the European Space Agency, where he received intensive training in preparation for his second mission in space to join the International Space Station. NASA's SpaceX crew's second mission is expected to dock with the ISS next Friday.
Houston's the home of astronaut training and mission control. Within the Johnson Space Center's facilities is a space vehicle mock-up facility, and that's where all of the models of the International Space Station are housed. So he's trained there to really perform how he will live and work and operate inside the International Space Station. Another area that he trains in is actually during the neutral buoyancy laboratory. So astronauts get to actually suit up and understand how they would perform a spacewalk before they go to the space station.
I think it's still very important to send people to space because there's plenty of scientific discoveries still to be had. We've sent, a lot of robots out to various planets in our solar system, but there's also a human factor that we still need to learn about and how humans adapt to alternate environments. And I think, definitely in the years and decades and centuries to come, there's still going to be an infinite amount of scientific discoveries to be had.
Well, back to a conversation of the day, understanding the roles of middleborns. And I understand we have George from Kirinyaga on the line. George, what's your comment or question?
I'm loving the conversation this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up as a middleborn in a family of 3 with my elder brother and my younger sister.
Uh-huh.
And I remember the pressure was so much in the house. Like, for example, I remember during the weekend, while we were both in the house, both my brother and my sister, I remember that every one of us had his favorite program to watch on the TV. As for my sister wanted to watch the cartoons, as for my brother had his favorite program, and I really wanted to watch some teen stuff because at that age I was still a teen. And I remember that we would fight for the remote. I remember my elder brother, when he was in the house, he was the one who was to dominate the remote. And my younger sister also had her favorite programs to watch. And after my brother had left, I was left I and my sister. And after I was left I and my sister, I remember that my mom would tell me that I should leave the remote for my young sister, and that she was the young one to watch all the favorite programs that she really wanted to watch. And at that point, I felt as if that my rights were being interfered with. In my young mind and my young understanding, I felt as if that as for my sister, she's younger than me, and I'm supposed to dominate the remote after my elder brother has left. And also in another thing, while my mom wanted to send us to something, he will not send my elder brother, and he will not also send my younger sister. Therefore, I was left to be the one who is to be sent in the kitchen, go get salt, go get pepper, go get sugar, clear the table. That was not a role that was given to my elder brother, and also was also not a role given to my younger sister because she was young.
Oh, wow.
At that point, I felt the pressure. I felt that as if my rights had been interfered with. And at a certain point, I also felt so suicidal because I felt as if things were going my brother's side and also things were going to my younger sister's side. And I felt as if my mom had favorites. That is my brother and my younger sister.
Thank you, George, for sharing that. And I can imagine that was quite a quagmire. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Pamela in Nairobi, what's your question or comment? Pamela?
Yes, hello.
Good morning. What's your question or comment?
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying the show.
Asante?
Yes, I'd like to direct my question where the parents are absent. Because when the parents are absent. Yeah, because for us, I was brought up in a family of 10, and I'm around the 8th born. So by the time I was around 7, 8 years, my mom left to go to the country.
Okay.
And my elder brother, sister, the first 6 were actually girls with only one boy, and they were not with us. They had already left. So we remained 4 of us. And the other 4, the 3 are boys. I'm the only girl in between. So the one who took the role of parenting was one of my brothers. And he really made it a hell for us. We called him headmaster to get.
Headmaster?
He would beat us. And he was not older. By the time I was around 10 years, both of our parents had left us in Nairobi and they went to country. So my father followed his feet to country.
Okay.
So we remained 4 kids in Nairobi.
Okay, so the question here is the role of the, or rather the dynamics of the parents when absent parents and the children have to bring themselves up and the siblings now have to assume parental roles. And of course, George, who says being the in-between, lost in there, he actually felt not wanted and the parents had favorites and to a point it had an impact on his mental health.
You remember when I said, you know what, George has brought it so clearly. The middle children have a lot of whys. Because when the older brother was there, the remote was in his control. Then immediately he goes, he assumes that he should be the next now in command. But then the command bypasses him and it's given to a younger. So why? And the why is what brings it this misunderstanding. And then the why is what now translates a lot into feeling that I'm not needed, I'm not required, I'm not, you know, it's like I'm discriminated. And then it brings on those suicidal tendencies. Because remember, for a teenager, and it brings in a very critical issue with what are we doing at what time with the roles that we are giving and how we are handling the dynamics of roles. Because at that time, the most important thing for a teenager is to feel accepted, to feel appreciated, to feel elevated, you know, if I may use that word, and be made like you are now the one in charge. Now, when that is taken away, however subtle it is, then they completely turn over as a teenager who is a middle child, and with that kind of confused role and confused positions, then the next thing they actually feel worthless. And when they feel worthless, the only thing, mostly, it leads them to basically say, I'd rather be out so that my parents are comfortable. Because they seem to be struggling with me here. And so I'd rather then get out of the equation. Or they look for that attention now in a painful way. And it's very important for our listeners and parents to note that. They look for it because now they'll force you to look for that attention, and sometimes, in quotes, begin to get you to punish you, you know, so that you realize that I'm equally important here. Now, the one that Pamela has talked about, remember, we said the dynamics of what is it that is going on in the family. And I'm not sure if I got her right, but the parents left.
Yeah, they went up country.
And they went up country, and now they have forcefully left their siblings to be parents. And when a child has been forcefully made to be a parent, chances are that they are in pain, they are overwhelmed, and they could actually be traumatized. And anyone who is uncomfortable, having pain, they will always inflict pain on another person. So whichever way, whether they, what is so challenging with moving back with your own children and bringing them up in that different environment. But remember, sometimes we say they must continue staying in the city.
Maybe because of
maybe
school
and maybe at home, the environment is not conducive.
Yeah.
But then what is it that has made you relocate and leave the role of parenting to the children? Now, if that is understood, and come back to what I was saying, it is so critical, Gladys, that families must hold conferences and workshops and agree on certain things, because what I like about the human mind, and that's where the interest comes in. Now, when a human person is made to understand anything, however challenging it is, it will be done. And when it is done with support and appreciation, it will be done. And you know certain things that even as a team, you've taken up some very hard, some very challenging responsibilities and roles and assignments. But what happened? How were you introduced to that assignment? And what was done after the assignment? And what was being done during the assignment? Yeah.
Okay, that does matter a lot. Now, still on this role of middle bonds, and I'm curious to know, let me start off with Tina. Who are you in a relationship? Who do you see yourself getting attracted to? Is it firstborns? Is it lastborns?
I can't really say whether it's the firstborn or the middle child or the lastborn. I think I get attracted to responsibility. Like if I feel like this guy, you know, or even if it's a female friend, like this female friend of mine, you know, she's responsible, she can do this and that. That's yeah, I get attracted to such people.
Interesting. And let me hear from Rosaline. Who do you see yourself enjoy their company most?
Interestingly enough, other middle bonds. Maybe we are kindred spirits. So yeah. Interestingly. So I think, anybody I've dated and the person I've married now are actually middle bonds.
Oh, even your own husband?
Hadn't even thought about it, but yeah.
Interesting. Let me hear from Victor. So, who are you attracted to? Who is in your company? Middle bonds, last bonds, fast bonds?
Well, at a glance, I would say middle bonds, because we relate a lot we have a lot in common, but I'm not really selective. Whoever comes along, I've learned to adapt with any kind of personality, so long as they are ready to accept me. I think I can also accept their uniqueness and differences.
Okay, now I purposely asked this question because there is a role of personality in this conversation. Now, they perhaps relate to middle bonds because they understand each other from that setup. But also Tina says she's attracted to responsibility, perhaps because that's what she was exposed to. What about these circumstances has the personality in them attracted?
Yeah. Remember, Gladys, I know there's still a lot of debate on personality types. Is it nature or nurture?
Yes.
Is it nurtured or is it a nature? But the nature aspect of it is still there because they are basically personality. I like referring them to personality A, personality B, because within the others are ranges. And that is what I look at depending on whether you are A, B, because there are people who basically find it extremely challenging. Whatever circumstances, whatever situations they are not outgoing. They do not make friends very fast. But remember, a lot of it can also be by the environment. And sometimes even roles, even if they are given a career, they would be so different when they are performing their careers. But then the moment they leave that space, and I know it happens to a lot of media personalities and journalists, they are perfect in front of the camera in terms of what somebody would see as their personality. But immediately they are through with that role, they step back and they would love their space completely. Then there are those who are generally outgoing. So in essence, what I'm saying is that the middle bond, the personality will be so shaped by the dynamics that we've been talking about. And even a firstborn, the dynamics can easily help them to stay within the farthest range, the farthest range of the continuum, the farthest range of that continuum. And they stay as extreme introverts, or they would stay as extreme extroverts, depending on the dynamics around. But then remember, they can actually hit both middles because of the look left, look right. They have always been made to do certain things that are extremely flexible because of the dynamics we've been talking about. So it's very, very clear. Now, I'm a middle-born married to a last-born. And what I resonate with what Roslyn is saying, what attracted me, and particularly when I'm looking at my relationships in the past, it's free, freelance, a free spirit. I love when people have a free spirit. So we resonate very well because it's a free spirit. But sometimes we have found ourselves all in the free spirit.
No one to govern.
No one to harden. Then someone has to really take on the role. So it means then I find myself, and I know my husband is watching, I find myself then he gives me the baton and I've got to take the harder role and it becomes maybe the softer role. Because again, I'm used to, like what Tina was saying, of taking responsibility and being in charge. So the dynamics actually play quite a lot with what is going on. Then the personality is quite important. If you look at me and my firstborn sister, she's a peaceful lady, no trouble, and she is always giving responsibility because she's quiet. She's a typical introvert person, and even if you put her in one of the loudest roles, she would still, be able to express that kind. But then I have to really think, look left, look right, for me to assume another role. But generally, I'm extrovert.
Yeah. Interesting. So even as we wrap up this conversation, let me hear from our middle bonds. I'll start off with the gentleman amongst us. Victor, what about your bringing up that you perhaps would carry over to your children now that you know better? And I think this conversation kind of gave you a bit of a 2020 vision in your upbringing.
What I would bring to the table with my own family would be maybe the cushioning from what from horrible experiences. Like sometimes our firstborn brother would cushion us from some experiences which we would have rather had. So, but generally we were all taught to be responsible, although of course the firstborn always took the lead role in that. But in terms of responsibility, we were all taught that you should be responsible, you should act accordingly, blah blah blah. So we were very well behaved children generally, and we were also taught these other values, being just a good person in general.
Okay.
So I think that's what I'll carry into my family.
Okay, Tina, how about you?
For me, what I have learned most is we should not misplace the roles. If you are a mom, be a mom. If you're a dad, be a dad. If you're a child, just be a child. The minute we start, mixing up these roles, since the family, as I mentioned earlier, it's the first institution we interact with, as human beings. So by the time, we're getting outside there, we started to work, we started interacting with other people, it's going to be very, very hard for this child who has all these mixed up roles, won't be able to adapt very well. So we really need to define our roles, and I think our parents need to do that for us.
Okay, and you intend to do that with your own family now that you have a daughter?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, and how about you, Rosaline?
Okay, just a final thing. I really like speaking to Tina and Victor, because as they spoke, I'm like, oh, actually, that's true about myself. So even just having the opportunity to see yourself through other people's eyes is fantastic. I think the thing that I must take into my family very deliberately is just keep seeing, understanding that they just keep seeing your children. Be very deliberate about how that every one of them is conscious, is aware that they are loved, that they are considered, that they're important in the family. A lot of the people who called in said that I was just lost in there. Nobody saw us, nobody considered us. I think that's so critical for family, that every child feels accepted and feels loved and feels cushioned. On the other side of that is that they understand responsibility and they understand values, and that they understand that they are part of something bigger than just themselves. So they must also not be self-absorbed. So it's an interesting balance that we love our family and we love our children, and we also teach them that they have a responsibility not just to the family but to themselves and to the world.
All right, very well said. I mean, Lois, out of this conversation, what I take home is a middleborn has a little bit of that, a little bit of the firstborn, a little bit of the lastborn, a little bit of everything, mediator, and many things in between. Your last words, especially to the parents?
My last word is so clear in my mind that every family needs to create time to just listen to each other. The moments I have learned my mistakes, and I call them mistakes, were when we had a free conversation and created that environment. And then the children were able to tell me some of the things that I did that hurt them, that I did not know then. Now, the many times I've sat, because I work a lot with young people, I hear the feelings of wise, misunderstood. I feel hated, and I've developed this way of introducing a young person into therapy by let's talk when we are all here. And parents have had things that they didn't imagine is going on with that child in their presence. Previously, we used to talk to parents, then we bring in the child. And then we have the child is wondering again, what has been said about me? So when some of them hear things that they did not intend completely, It's completely out of their intention, but that is what was perceived by the child, like what we were told, the listener from Kirinyaga. So please create time, create an environment where you can afford to take feedback from this beautiful, first institution, greatest institution, divine institution that shapes the future of not just your children, but also the future of the entire community. Take time. We can call them conferences, workshops, symposiums, but they should be there in every family, periodically, regularly, depending on how roles are being played and shifting. So that would be my critical, just have a time to sit. Yeah.
Okay, very well said. A conversation, very concise one here on the role of middleborns. Thank you. Thank you, Lois No, who is a psychologist, and of course our middleborns, Rosaline Mutahi, Victor Movishi, all the way from Malindi, and Tina Lenjo joining us from Mombasa. Thank you for being candid about your own experiences. And of course, I'm sure you've walked away with a thing or two about your own growing up and what you can do better even as you parent in the future. Well, tomorrow we'll be back on Your World, and this time Victor Kiprop will be the one on the steering wheel, and he will be putting across a conversation on the gaming industry, especially on a day that is marked worldwide as the Innovation and Creativity Day. So how is this industry faring on in this country, and especially in the face of this pandemic? Find out tomorrow from 7 a.m. See you then.